Now for the final cut is the least often studied cut. It's the eggshell. It's the sagittal cut. So we've reset the screen and we now put the plane of cutting to this one. So the sagittal plane. Now we're gonna move this brain here into the cutter over here, and we'll look at this box to see how the brain looks like. So by convention, the MRIs this time, which can do sagittal cuts, proceed from right brain to left brain. Okay, so this is a cadaver brain. We're not quite sure which one is the right or the left, so we'll presume this one's the right and proceed. So we're going to move this brain into the cutter here. So that's how it appears. When you're going through the sagittal plane, you see the most lateral surface first, which are your frontal, parietal, and temporal. Okay, so we're cutting through it. This is the Sylvian fissure. That is the Sylvian fissure as well. So we push the brain into the cutter. We reposition it so we can see what's going on. So we proceed. Okay, so more or less you see the shape of the brain. The temporal lobe, its pole is here. The occipital pole is over here, and the frontal pole is over here, and this area is the Sylvian fissure. So let's push the brain, cutting the Sylvian fissure until we reach the insula. So you can see the insula contains the basal ganglia over here. The temporal lobe, you start to see here the hippocampus. So if you want to focus on hippocampus, it's actually banana shaped if you're looking at it from the sagittal plane. So banana shaped. So we cut through that banana into this cut. Okay, like this. So in front of the hippocampus is the amygdala over here. So you're seeing here the mass of the putamen, as well as the centrum semiovale and the corona radiata over here as they reach the basal ganglia. So you see this radial fibers penetrating the basal ganglia. That's the corona radiata. Okay. So let's move it forward a bit so that we see this is a cut through the amygdala over here. So it's very medial. So we go back so we don't go too fast. So that's the putamen. Now we're cutting through the putamen, the globus pallidus, and then the internal capsule. If you look here, that's the internal capsule inside. And then we see here the separation of the putamen from the globus pallidus, and I mean the thalamus, by the internal capsule. And that's our stroke that we saw earlier on the right posterior limb of the internal capsule. Okay, so if you go beyond the internal capsule, that's now your thalamus here, just before the midline, because the midline contains your third ventricle. So we cut further towards the midline, and we see only space. That space is the space where the third ventricle is. Okay, and that's the corpus callosum. That's one of the fornices peeking through. So you see here, the fornix will target the thalamus, and as you'll see later on, the mammillary bodies. So we push the brain some more. So we're at the midline, so we see spaces here. So we move forward until we start to see the other fornix now, and the other thalamus here. And then we see the mirror image of everything that we saw earlier. Okay. So we're proceeding to the left side of the brain, and that's your, okay, those are the basal ganglia and the internal capsule. internal capsule, which becomes the radiating fibers of the corona radiata. There, maybe if you can see it, I'll zoom in. That's the corona radiata fibers. Again, that's the banana of the hippocampus on the other side. Then we proceed to the body of the putamen here. That's the putamen, that's the putamen. Corona radiata and the centrum semiovale above. That's your trigone inside the parietal lobe, and that's the end, which are the occipital horns of the lateral ventricle on the left side. And proceeding further, the putamen disappears. That's your extreme capsule, as you can see here. And move a bit to see the very thin claustrum, and then it disappears and now becomes the gray matter of the insula over here. And then now we're back in the sylvian fissure on the other side, proceeding to the temporal lobes, and proceeding towards the ear on the left side. Now we see the shape of the brain again: frontal pole, temporal pole, and occipital pole. And then we're back on the other side. And then we reset.